She humiliated me by spitting in my face in front of my entire family when I proposed to her on Christmas, mocking the ring and me. But I left her right there, and now she's trying to crawl back while realizing that the real shame was just beginning for her. I'm 29 years old and had been with Madison, 28, for 3 years. I met her at a mutual friend's birthday party when I was 26. She was wearing a summer dress, and to be completely honest, she seemed like the most attractive woman there. We talked for hours, laughed about silly and meaningless things, and at the end of the night, she gave me her number. We started dating afterward. 6 months later, Madison moved into my apartment. She said her lease was up. It was the most logical thing, and it was a good financial decision. Although the reality is that financially it only worked out for her. I covered the rent, utilities, groceries, and practically all household expenses. She worked part-time at a downtown boutique, earning perhaps $15 an hour, but for some mysterious reason, her salary completely disappeared on clothes, nails, hairdressing, and lunches with friends. Every outing we had, I paid for. I also started covering her car insurance because she was short that month. Then it was the next month. And then it simply became another one of my responsibilities. Every time I tried to talk about it, she got defensive. She accused me of being controlling, of keeping tabs, and that if I really loved her, I wouldn't be questioning anything. She argued that her job didn't pay well and that I earned more, so she didn't see what the problem was. I, like a foolish man in love, told myself that things would eventually balance out, that when she found a better job, or when we got married, everything would change. And so we arrived at Christmas Eve. I had been planning to propose for 2 months. I found a jeweler recommended by a coworker. I chose a ring with good clarity, good cut, and excellent quality. It wasn't the flashiest in the store, but it was a ring that truly represented how I felt about her. It cost me 2 months' salary, $8,200, already deducting taxes and the absurd warranty I bought. Money that I could have easily used for a new car, to start a fund for a house, or anything else more sensible, but I wanted her to feel special. I wanted a perfect moment. My family had organized the Christmas dinner at home. Mom made her famous prime rib. Dad told his usual stories that we all pretended to laugh at for the 20th time, and my sister Laura played with her children by the tree. The whole house smelled of pine, cinnamon, and Christmas. It was the ideal moment. I waited until after dinner, when everyone was gathered in the living room. My hands were shaking when I pulled out the ring box. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say 100 times. I knelt down in front of Madison and whispered, "Madison, I love you. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" Everything fell into absolute silence. My family was smiling, phones ready to record, Mom with her hand on her chest, Dad proud, Laura excited to tears, and Madison. Madison looked at the ring, then looked at me, and her face adopted an expression I had never seen before. It was something between disgust and anger, as if I had just insulted her entire family. "Are you serious?" she said with genuine disbelief. I didn't know how to respond. "This ring is a joke." I tried to explain, but my brain shut down. "It's small," she snapped as if pronouncing a grave offense. "You expect me to wear this? My friend Brienne got a much bigger ring last year. And you give me this?" The air became heavy. No one spoke, but everyone listened. Mom looked horrified. Dad was no longer smiling, and Laura's mouth was completely open. I wanted to say something, anything. But before I could move, Madison leaned toward me and spit in my face. "This is what I think of your cheap, pathetic ring," she spat with absolute contempt. A deathly silence filled the room. Mom gasped. I could hear even the children stop their game. I remained there, kneeling, with the ring in my hand and saliva dripping down my cheek, and at that instant, something inside me simply broke. 3 years of paying for everything, 3 years of being accused of being controlling for asking for basic respect, 3 years of sustaining the relationship while she spent her salary on frivolities. 3 years, and now this, in front of my parents, my sister, and my nephews. I had not a drop of dignity left to lose. I wiped my face with my sleeve and said with a calmness that surprised even me, "It's over." Madison's face lost all color. "What?" "It's over. Take your things and get out of my apartment." "You can't break up with me." "I just did." She looked around for support, but no one moved. Mom looked at her with contempt. Dad seemed ready to physically push her out, and Laura just shook her head. It was then that her indignation turned into fury. "Fine. You want the truth? I'm still in love with Derek, my ex. He knows how to treat a woman. He doesn't keep accounts like you. He doesn't make me feel cheap. I've been seeing him for months, and you know what? I'm leaving with him right now. He would have bought me the ring I really deserve." The room again fell into a terrifying silence. She grabbed her purse and coat, walking toward the door. Dad threatened to say something, but Mom stopped him. Just before leaving, Madison turned, looked at me with scorn, and finished, "Derek would have gotten me the ring you never could." She closed the door without a sound. She didn't slam it. She didn't scream. She just left, leaving a void that sounded louder than any argument. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. Mom looked ready to go out and fight her at the entrance. Laura was already checking Madison's social media, surely determined to discover how much more she had been hiding. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by all of Madison's things, replaying every one of her words over and over, knowing that she had been cheating on me for months, at least 6, maybe more, left me in a strange state, an unpleasant mix of disbelief and contained rage. Until that moment, I had been immersed in sadness, but that night, something in me truly changed. I stopped mourning and started getting genuinely angry. The next morning, December 26th, I woke up in the midst of the same chaos, 3 years' worth of accumulated belongings from someone who no longer wanted to share a life with me. I got up, grabbed my phone, and sent her a direct message. "You have until noon to pick up your things. After that, they're going to the street." She didn't reply. When the clock struck 12:30, I got tired of waiting. I started gathering all her clothes, shoes, makeup, jewelry, books, every object she had left in my house over the course of 3 years. Without thinking much, I opened the window of my second-floor apartment and began throwing everything into the parking lot. Dresses falling into icy puddles, shoes bouncing on the asphalt, and even that designer bag I had bought her for her birthday ended up submerged in a puddle of dirty water and melted snow. The weather was on my side, cold, damp, perfect for ruining others' belongings without much effort. By 2 p.m., it looked like the scene of an absurdly expensive and messy yard sale. I took a photo of the disaster, sent it to her, and wrote, "Your things are outside. You have an hour before everything is donated or picked up by whoever passes by." In less than 5 minutes, my phone rang. "Are you crazy? You can't throw away my things like that." "I already did. Those things are worth a lot of money." "Then hurry up. It's starting to snow again." "Derek is with me. He's going to make you regret it if you don't bring everything back inside." I couldn't help but laugh. "Let him try." "I'm right here." She hung up without another word. Half an hour later, a battered Ford Focus pulled into the parking lot. Madison and, I immediately assumed, Derek got out. The guy was exactly what I imagined, a gym fanatic, tight t-shirt to show off muscles he probably exercised more than his brain, and that energy of someone who records himself lifting weights to post inspirational quotes about discipline and effort. Madison looked like a mess, hair disheveled, no makeup, wearing the same clothes from the day before, and with the expression of someone who hadn't slept at all. As soon as she got out of the car, she ran toward her belongings scattered in the snow, making dramatic noises as if witnessing a tragedy. Derek, on the other hand, came straight toward me, puffing out his chest as if he were in a posing contest. "You got a problem, bro?" "Just clearing out garbage." His face turned red. "Are you calling Madison garbage?" "If the definition fits." "Speaking of definitions, I think one of her shoes is in that puddle." He moved closer. I didn't move. We were about 5 steps apart, close enough for me to smell the exaggerated scent of his cheap cologne. "Derek, just help me with the stuff." Madison screamed, carrying a pile of wet clothes. But he was already committed to his alpha male role. She was watching. He had to impress. No, this guy needs to learn some respect. Seriously, you're about to get yourself into trouble if you don't shut your mouth. Madison stopped picking things up and turned toward us with that unhealthy excitement in her eyes of someone hoping for a fight. Do it, honey. Teach him. And that's when Derek made his mistake. He tried to punch me. I was already expecting something like that. Men like him always telegraph their intentions from miles away. They tense their arm too much, rotate their torso as if they want everyone to see how strong they are. I just had to step aside. His fist sailed past and he was completely off balance. Before he could recover his posture, I grabbed his extended arm and pulled, using his own momentum. He stumbled forward, flailing his arms to avoid falling. I didn't give him time. I moved forward, drove my shoulder into his chest, and simultaneously tripped his ankle. The impact against the pavement was forceful and satisfying. He tried to get up with that gym guy pride that doesn't want to admit defeat. He barely managed to get on all fours when I was already on top of him. I grabbed the back of his head and slammed his face against the ground. I didn't use all my strength, but enough. I heard his nose break, a dry, unpleasant sound. Blood immediately began to flow. "Stay down," I told him. Madison screamed his name. I just observed him from above, breathing deeply. He made choked sounds, hands covering his face as blood seeped through his fingers. His nose was already swelling, twisted. "You broke his nose," she yelled. "He defended himself poorly." "Not my problem. Lots of muscle, no technique. You're a monster. He attacked me on my property. It's called self-defense, but you should take him to the hospital. That nose looks awful." Derek tried to get up one more time, but he barely had coordination. He sat down, swaying, bleeding uncontrollably. Madison tried to lift him, but he was dead weight. She finally managed to drag him to the car. He left a trail of red drops marking the path. She put him in, walked around the car, started it, and sped out of the parking lot, leaving most of her belongings scattered in the snow. I simply went back inside, washed my hands, made coffee, and put on The Godfather. 3 hours later, she returned alone. I saw her from the window when she parked. She stood for a moment, observing her soaked and ruined belongings. Then she started picking them up, crying as she made trips between the parking lot and the car. She looked exhausted, wearing the same clothes, smudged makeup, and swollen eyes. On her third trip, she looked up and saw me watching from the window. That's when she lost her composure. She took a wet dress and threw it against the building wall, then a shoe, then a book. Finally, she picked up a heel, brandished it at me as if to use it as a weapon, and started shouting something I couldn't hear through the glass. I called the police without a second thought. At that moment, there was no room for doubt or second interpretations. I just wanted someone to restore order before the situation escalated further. With a tense voice, I dialed 911, and as soon as they answered, I rattled off the information. "I need officers at the Riverside Apartments on Oak Street," I explained, trying to remain calm. "My ex-girlfriend is destroying her own belongings in the parking lot and creating a pretty severe disturbance." As I spoke, I watched from my window as Madison remained consumed by the irrational frenzy that had taken hold of her since she discovered our relationship was truly over. At first, she only threw the clothes I myself had neatly piled outside, but within minutes she had moved on to grabbing any object near her. Decorative garden stones, a piece of wood I had no idea where it came from, even what looked like a trash can lid. The scene became surreal. She was beside herself, shouting incoherently, brandishing a heel as if it were a knife, and repeating Derek's name between nonsensical phrases. In less than 5 minutes, a patrol car appeared at the end of the parking lot with its sirens off, but its lights on. 2 officers got out of the vehicle. One adjusted his belt, the other quickly scanned the area. Seeing them, Madison tried to compose herself, as if she suddenly remembered that the presence of the police demanded a certain attitude. She straightened her clothes, wiped her face with her hand, and tried to project a composure she no longer possessed. "Ma'am, we received a report of a disturbance," one of the officers said in a firm but patient voice. Immediately, Madison lifted the heel, pointing toward my window. although her aim was so poor that she was pointing toward a completely different bush. "Him!" she shouted. "That man threw my things from his apartment and attacked my boyfriend. He's the aggressor. You have to arrest him." The officers exchanged a quick look, one of those looks that says, "There's more to this than meets the eye," without the need for words. One of them took a couple of steps forward. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked. "You look agitated?" "I'm fine," she replied immediately, too quickly. "I'm just upset because he... Those belongings are yours?" The officer interrupted her. Madison nodded vehemently, as if trying to convince herself. "Yes, he threw them all out." "So, you are causing a disturbance over your own belongings on private property?" the officer asked, adopting a firmer tone. "If you no longer live here, he can legally remove them. You must collect your things and leave, or we will have to cite you for disturbing the peace." Madison began to tremble. I didn't know if it was rage, frustration, or simply emotional exhaustion she could no longer hide. Her eyes darted from the police to my window as if desperately searching for someone to blame. "This is all his fault!" she shouted again, pointing toward me with the heel as if it were an accusing wand. "He's the one who should be arrested." Now she was flailing her hands uncontrollably, always with the heel tightly grasped in one of them, which made the situation look even more dangerous. "Ma'am, calm down and gather your belongings," the officer insisted, trying to remain calm. "I am calm!" she screamed, completely contradicting her tone, posture, and behavior. One of the police officers took another step closer, raising an open hand as a sign that he didn't want to frighten her. "Ma'am," he said patiently, "we need you to put down that shoe and breathe. You are not helping your situation." "I don't need to calm down," she replied. "I need you to arrest that man. He's ruining my life." The officer reached out his hand to try to reassure her, but right at that moment, Madison lost the last trace of self-control she had left. With a sudden movement, she pushed him with both hands directly on the chest. Everything froze for an instant. The scene was suspended in a strange, almost unreal silence, as if no one could believe what had just happened. The police officer stumbled back a step, looked at his own chest, then at his partner, and finally at Madison. "Ma'am," he said in a firm voice, without shouting, "you have just assaulted a police officer. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." "What? No, he grabbed me first. I was defending myself," she replied in a tone that sounded more like desperation than assurance. "Turn around immediately." "It was self-defense," she insisted, although even she seemed to realize that she had crossed a point of no return. 30 seconds later, she was handcuffed. She continued struggling, screaming that everything was a trap, that I had planned everything, that none of this was fair. Her words were lost between sobs and shouts as they guided her toward the back of the patrol car. One of the officers came up to my apartment to take a formal statement. I recounted every detail, from the scene at Christmas, the infidelity, the breakup, and everything that happened in the parking lot. I showed him messages, photos, and any evidence that could help. "We are charging her with assault on an officer and disturbing the peace," he informed me, "and her belongings." "What do I do with all that?" I asked, looking out the window at the mess in the parking lot. "That's between you two," he replied. "But if I were you, I would remove everything before tomorrow so she doesn't have an excuse to return." When the patrol car left, with Madison still screaming from inside, I called a junk removal company. I paid them $200 to pick up everything she had left scattered. Watching them load her bags, boxes, and broken objects away from the apartment complex was, honestly, a feeling of relief I didn't know how much I needed. It was, without a doubt, the best money I've spent in years. The following morning, as soon as I woke up, I filed a request for a temporary restraining order. I included the Christmas scene, the confrontation in the parking lot, and her arrest. The judge approved it without hesitation. Madison was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me, my apartment, or my job. I needed it more than I wanted to admit. When I checked my phone, I had 17 missed calls from unknown numbers, voicemails from Madison's mother, her sister, and several friends, all asserting that I was a monster for ruining her life, for forcing her arrest, for throwing out her things, for being abusive. Nothing new. I blocked everything and went to work. Arriving at the office was like entering another universe. There were no shouts, no dramas, no scenes of hysteria, just adults busy with their tasks. I spent the morning reviewing blueprints for an office complex downtown, checking calculations, and ensuring everything complied with codes. It was almost therapeutic. Still, I noticed my colleagues were acting strangely. They looked at me as if they knew something they didn't dare to say, as if they expected me to bring up the subject first, and they just needed to nod. During lunchtime, Tyler approached my desk, sat on the edge, sighed, and commented, "Brother, I heard what happened. What a complicated situation." There wasn't much more. The others just gave uncomfortable pats on my shoulder, as if they didn't know if they were being supportive or getting involved in others' affairs. A woman from accounting left homemade cookies for me, and when I mentioned them, she froze like a statue, almost regretting having spoken. That same afternoon, I received an email from an unknown address. Opening it, I felt rage crawl up my back like a chill. It was from Derek, or someone impersonating him. Subject: "We need to talk." The message was a jumble of threats disguised as victimhood. He said that I had attacked him, that he was going to ruin my life, that he would inform my company that I was violent and unstable, and that he would make all my dangerous actions public. I forwarded it to my personal email to save it as evidence and blocked him. 2 hours later, another email arrived, longer, more aggressive, more threatening. It talked about finding where I worked, defaming me on social media, and making me pay. I saved that one too. The next morning, Derek decided to carry out part of his threats. He found my company's public email and sent a message believing it would go directly to my boss, although it actually ended up in the general human resources inbox. The email was ridiculous. It asserted that I was dangerous, that I should not work with clients, and that I had attacked him without provocation. His mistake was sending it from his work email. His signature clearly showed where he worked, the LA Fitness, where he was apparently a personal trainer. That afternoon, the human resources manager called me to her office. She closed the door with a seriousness she didn't usually use with me. "Jackson," she said, folding her hands on the desk, "we need to talk about an email we received this morning." And her look made it clear that what was coming was going to be important. I spent the morning working when I received a strange email mentioning my name. My boss called me to her office almost immediately. "I received quite a peculiar email about you. Can you explain what's going on?" she asked calmly, though I noticed the concern in her voice. I told her everything from the beginning: the marriage proposal, the public humiliation, the fight in the parking lot, Madison's arrest, and everything that happened afterward. I showed her the emails Derek had sent me, the police report of Madison's arrest, and the documentation related to the restraining order. She listened to every detail without interrupting, taking notes seriously. "So, let me see if I understand correctly," she finally said. "This man is your ex's boyfriend, and he is harassing you at your workplace because you defended yourself when he attacked you first." "Exactly," I replied. "And he sent these emails from his work address at a gym?" "Yes." She remained thoughtful for a few seconds. "I'm going to contact his employer. They need to know that one of their employees is using company resources to harass and threaten someone on our team. But I need your authorization to share certain details of the situation." "Do I have it?" I replied without hesitation. "Perfect. Give me a few weeks to handle everything through the official channels," she said before ending the conversation. I didn't ask her what she planned to do. I just thanked her and returned to my tasks. 3 weeks later, I noticed something had changed. Derek's social media accounts were empty. His Instagram had disappeared, his Facebook too. His profile on the LA Fitness website no longer existed. That same day, around noon, Tyler approached my desk. "Hey, did you see that trainer who was harassing you got fired?" "How did you find out?" I asked, surprised. "My wife goes to LA Fitness. Apparently, the owner received an email from our Human Resources department. explaining that one of their employees was using company resources to threaten someone. They checked his email and fired him last week. That's how I understood what had happened. Our human resources manager had taken the situation very seriously. She contacted the LA Fitness corporate office directly, explained everything precisely using clear legal terms, and detailed how their employee posed a liability risk to the company. Corporate then contacted the franchise owner. The owner reviewed Derek's emails, and within days, he was unemployed. I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. 2 days later, I received a call from an unknown number. I was about to reject it, but something made me answer. "Hello, this is Derek," said a trembling voice on the other end. He sounded different. Broken. "We have nothing to talk about," I replied. "Please, just listen for a minute." Against my instinct, I didn't hang up. "After you broke my nose, I went back with Madison to my apartment. I thought she would be worried because I couldn't breathe properly and my face was so swollen that it looked like I'd been hit by a truck," he recounted, pausing to catch his breath. "But she was furious. With me, not with you." I remained silent. She yelled that I had made her look ridiculous, that a real man would have defended her. She called me weak, pathetic. And then she hit me. She slapped me because she said I made her look like a fool in front of you. I still didn't say anything. I'm a coward, I know. I attacked you because she wanted me to. I sent those emails because I thought that would make her happy. I did everything she asked without even thinking. And now, I don't even know what I expected to achieve, he admitted in a defeated voice. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked. "Because I'm sorry. I really am sorry. You were right about her. She's not worth it. She never was. I lost my job, my apartment. I can't pay the rent. And I also lost any respect I had left for myself," he said, almost in a whisper. There was a long silence. "I just wanted to apologize. You didn't deserve any of what I did to you. You just defended your property and defended yourself. I was the one who turned this physical, and I accept that." Without waiting for a response, he hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand, wondering what kind of person could manipulate someone to that extent. 3.5 months passed after that call. 3.5 months of absolute peace, no drama, no threats, no chaos. I returned to a normal routine. I worked, spent time with my friends, visited my parents on weekends, and started going to the gym more regularly. I even picked up hobbies I had abandoned while I was with Madison. My apartment felt like mine again. I took down all the remaining photos of us and replaced them with art I actually liked. I bought new furniture, not the ones she had insisted on, and even adopted a rescued mixed-breed dog, Buster, who seemed to have found heaven just by having a home. My life was quiet, exactly what I needed. Tyler, always insistent, tried several times to set me up with a friend from the church his wife attended. I went on one date with her. She was sweet, kind, but I was honest with her. I wasn't ready for a serious relationship. She understood without a problem. I also went out a couple of times with other people. No commitment, no pressure, simple, adult, balanced, very different from what I had experienced before. Meanwhile, my sister Laura kept spying on Madison's social media. "She looks miserable," she told me during a family dinner in early April. She posted a quote about betrayal and trust issues. "Good," my mother commented without looking up from her plate. "She earned it." My father shook his head. "I still can't believe she rejected you on Christmas Eve. In my day, that would have been a cause for public shame." "In your day, people got married at 20 and then lived together out of sheer stubbornness," I replied. "And look how that turned out," Mom commented before throwing a bread roll at my dad. Everything was going as it should. Until mid-April, Madison decided to appear one last time. By then, I was casually dating someone. Her name was Emily. She was a nurse at the downtown hospital, and our outings were quiet, without absurd expectations. I didn't know Madison was about to cross my path again. Emily had always been a calm, mature person with her feet completely on the ground. She liked to live simply. She paid her own bills, had her own car, never depended on anyone, and never insinuated that I had to finance anything for her. That normalcy, after what I went through with Madison, felt like an immense relief. That's why that Saturday afternoon in mid-April, when the two of us were in my apartment watching a random movie, and Buster was asleep at my feet with his snout resting on the floor, I felt like I finally had something resembling peace. It wasn't an extraordinary moment, but one of those small moments that make you think you might be starting to heal. But that calm lasted very little. A sharp knock on the door pulled us out of the movie. At first, I thought it might be a neighbor asking for something or maybe a package. I got up without giving it much thought, but as soon as I looked through the peephole, my stomach clenched. It was her, Madison, standing in my hallway, holding a plate covered with aluminum foil, as if visiting an old friend instead of showing up at the house of someone who had a restraining order against her. I opened the door cautiously, and then I observed her carefully. Madison was different, and not in a good way. Thinner, with a worn look, as if the last couple of months had drained her. She wasn't wearing makeup, something unthinkable in the version of her I knew. Her hair was pulled back haphazardly, and she was wearing worn jeans and a plain t-shirt. None of those designer clothes she defended as if they were her identity. There was something muted in her gaze, a confused mix of vulnerability and tension. "Hi," she said softly. Barely audible. "Madison, what are you doing here?" She lifted the plate slightly. "I wanted to talk to you. I made you some cookies. Your favorites, with extra chips. I remembered you liked them that way. Can we talk for 5 minutes? Just that." I had to suppress my frustration to answer her. "You can't be here. There's a restraining order. You know that." Yes, I know, but I just wanted to truly apologize for everything." Her voice trembled slightly. "I beg you, just listen to me for a moment." At that moment, Emily approached from behind me, not fully understanding who was on the other side. "Is something wrong?" she asked, worried. Madison looked at her as if that simple sight had ignited an internal fuse. Her entire body tensed immediately. The soft, uncomfortable expression she had brought transformed into something completely different, something hard. "And who is she supposed to be?" She spat with a venomous tone. "Madison," I replied firmly. "You have to leave now." No, she repeated, shaking her head as if trying to reject reality. "You moved on that fast? In 3 months? With her?" I took out my phone. I had no intention of continuing to tolerate this. "I'm calling the police." "With her?" She pointed aggressively at Emily. "Are you serious with me? With this stranger? After everything we went through?" Emily took a step back, surprised by the intensity. I moved my body to block the entrance, anticipating that Madison would attempt something. "Last warning," I said. "You leave, or I call 911. I came here to apologize." Her voice rose to the point of cracking. "I spent the whole morning making these cookies, trying to get them perfect for you. And you're with some tramp you probably don't even know." I pressed the call button. It was the only responsible thing to do. Madison saw it, and her gaze became dangerous. "Don't you dare!" Her voice dropped abruptly. "Don't you dare call! You are violating the restraining order. Leave." She started breathing rapidly, agitated. "I dedicated 3 years to this relationship. 3!" she shouted, completely out of control. "And you throw everything away? For her?" She tried to look inside the apartment, searching for Emily. "Do you think you're so special?" she shouted toward the interior. "You're nothing more than a patch for him, a cheap distraction. He doesn't care about you. He's just using you to forget me." "Madison," I tried to speak, but she interrupted me sharply. "That pathetic ring was for me," she screamed, now crying. "We were going to get married. We were going to have a life together, and you're going to give it to her?" With a yank, she pulled the aluminum foil off the plate. The cookies were visibly burnt and hardened. She picked one up and held it aloft as if it were evidence. "You don't want my apologies or my cookies? Fine." She threw it forcefully. It passed inches from my head and hit the wall with a solid impact that left a mark. Before I could say anything, she had another one in her hand. She started throwing them uncontrollably. One hit the door frame, another entered the apartment and shattered on the floor. They looked like stones. The call connected. 911. What is your emergency? My ex-girlfriend is violating a restraining order and is throwing objects inside my apartment. Madison dropped the plate. The cookies scattered all over the hallway, but she wasn't looking at them anymore. Her eyes were fixed on Emily with intense hatred. You! She said in a threat of a voice charged with fury. This is all your fault! And she lunged forward. She didn't come toward me. She went straight for Emily, trying to slip past me to enter the apartment. I grabbed her arm firmly and pulled her back. She stumbled and almost fell, but immediately regained her balance, pushing me with surprising force to try to get in again. Get away from him, she screamed at Emily. Get out. He's mine. He's always been mine. Emily was already at the other end of the living room, hands trembling. Buster barked and ran in circles, unable to understand what was happening. Madison clawed at my arms, desperately trying to get past. I used all my weight to hold the door and keep her out. She pushed, screamed, clawed, cried. It was pure adrenaline mixed with resentment. Sir, are you still on the line? The operator asked. Yes, I replied, holding her back as best I could. She is trying to break in and attack my girlfriend. Seriously, send help fast. Officers are 3 minutes away. Stay on the line. Madison continued struggling. Her nails left several scratches on my arms as she repeated incoherent phrases. You ruined everything, everything. I could have fixed it. I could have made it work. She grabbed a cookie from the floor and threw it like a rock. Emily ducked just in time. The cookie hit the living room window with such force that I thought it had shattered. Then she took more cookies from the floor and started throwing them inside the apartment without aiming. One hit the television, another the sofa, another the lamp. Then, finally, the siren was heard. Madison stopped. Her eyes widened unnaturally. She looked toward the stairs, then at me, and shook her head, trembling. No, she whispered. You didn't really call. You just wanted to scare me. I just wanted to talk to you. I just wanted you to come back. At that moment, 2 officers reached the bottom of the stairs and illuminated her with their flashlights. As soon as the officers turned the corner, they immediately grasped what was happening. Madison was standing right at the entrance, surrounded by crumbled cookies everywhere, while I had visible scratch marks on my arms, and my apartment was filled with debris scattered across the floor. Ma'am, step away from the door, one of the agents instructed her firmly. Madison spun abruptly toward them. He attacked me, she exclaimed. I came here calmly. I just wanted to talk, and he was the one who assaulted me. The officer observed me closely, then looked at my marked arms, and then at Emily, who was toward the back of the apartment, pale with fright while Buster barked nonstop. Sir, are you all right? Yes. She violated a restraining order, attempted to force her way in, and attacked my girlfriend, I replied without hesitation. That's a lie, Madison screamed. I came to apologize. I brought him cookies and he lost control. The second officer bent down, picked up one of the cookies from the hallway, and squeezed it between his fingers. He looked at his partner, raising his eyebrows. Ma'am, what exactly is in this? Concrete. They're cookies, she replied indignantly. The officer weighed it in his hand as if evaluating a baseball. They don't look like cookies. This could be used as a weapon. His partner barely managed to contain his laughter. She forgot the baking powder. Stop making fun of my cookies, shouted Madison. I'm not making fun, the agent replied. I'm genuinely concerned about the structural integrity of this. My kids make better cookies with pre-made supermarket dough. He then looked at me. Sir, did any of these hit you? Several hit the walls. One hit my television. The officer picked up one of the cookies that had rebounded off the door frame. Yes, I see why it left a dent. This isn't baking. It's ammunition. He straightened up. Ma'am, you are under arrest for violating a restraining order, attempted assault, and property damage. Turn around. What? No. This is absurd. I just wanted to talk to him. The agent began reading her rights while she cried, but it was no longer a dramatic cry. It was a desperate, almost hysterical one. She tried to pull away when he tried to take her arm. Don't touch me. I didn't do anything wrong. Hands behind your back, the officer ordered. This isn't fair. He ruined everything. They had to turn her around and handcuff her. Even so, she continued arguing, crying, and asserting that everything was a misunderstanding. The second officer escorted her downstairs to the patrol car. Her screams could be heard until they left the building. The first officer stayed to take our statements. I showed him the restraining order on my phone and recounted step by step what had happened. Emily also gave her version, her voice shaky but clear. The agent took photos of everything: the crushed cookies, the marks on the walls, the damage to the television, the scratches on my arms, and the dent in the door frame caused by a particularly violent cookie. "She will be charged with several counts," he commented. "Violation of a restraining order is serious, and the attempted assault and damages worsen the situation. With the injuries on you and the threat to your girlfriend, the prosecutor will likely request jail time. It will depend on her history and whether she accepts a plea deal, but I would expect at least 30 to 60 days, plus probation and anger management." When he left, Emily and I were left observing the scene. Cookie debris all over the floor, marks on the walls. Buster, finally calm, cautiously sniffed the mess. "So," Emily said carefully, "that was your ex?" "Yes," I replied. "And she tried to attack me with homemade weapons disguised as cookies." Emily looked at the scattered pieces, then at my arms and the marked wall. "This is a bit much for a sixth date. You're right. Call me when you've processed everything and when you're sure she's going to spend a good amount of time in jail," she added with a half smile. "And consider buying a doorbell camera." She gave me a kiss on the cheek before leaving. I was left alone with Buster, who finally concluded that the cookies were not worth it. "Don't eat those," I warned him. "You'd break all your teeth." I took more photos for my own records and started making calls. First to Laura, then to my landlord to report the damage. He arrived an hour later. He observed the debris on the floor, the hit on the wall, and the dent in the frame. He picked up a piece of cookie. Then he said slowly, "Your ex did this?" "Yes, with cookies." He tried to break the piece between his fingers. He couldn't. "What kind of cookie is this? Did she use cement?" "Apparently she didn't use baking powder and put in too much flour." The man burst out laughing. "In 30 years as a landlord, I've seen everything, but never anyone turning baked goods into weapons." He checked the damage. "You'll have to cover the repair, plus paint, and I have to check that frame." "She's being charged," he said. "I'll take care of everything necessary." "Good. Document everything. Photos, police reports, everything. And next time, don't open the door." Lesson learned. 6 months later, I received a call from the prosecutor's office, one of those you don't expect but know exactly what it's about as soon as you see the number. Answering, the legal assistant formally and almost routinely informed me that Madison had decided to accept a plea deal to avoid a long trial. They explained that the deal included 45 days in county jail, a year and a half of probation, mandatory impulse control classes, and full payment for the damages caused that chaotic afternoon. They detailed the final figure: wall repairs, door frame fixing, partial television replacement, and my medical expenses for the scratches. Everything totaled around $1,240. They also confirmed that the restraining order was renewed for 5 additional years, this time under stricter conditions due to the repeated offense and violent behavior. I thanked them for the call, hung up, and felt for the first time in months a sense of real closure. From then on, the silence was absolute. I no longer received anonymous messages, strange emails, or attempts at contact disguised as coincidences. It was as if Madison had simply vanished from my life, and frankly, I preferred it that way. Over time, Emily and I strengthened our relationship. She continued to show exactly what I was looking for: independence, balance, and a sense of companionship that made everything feel natural and easy. Buster, who initially only tolerated her because he barked like crazy that night, ended up adoring her. He now sits beside her on the sofa, as if he chose her himself. My family welcomed her with open arms. They realized that Emily was a stable person with her own world and no interest in turning my life into a project that she had to sustain out of obligation. We shared responsibilities, decisions, and moments, and all of that created a feeling of tranquility that I didn't remember having before. And as for the ring, the $200 one that was intended for someone who never valued anything, it remains locked in the safety deposit box, intact. Sometimes I open it just to make sure it's still there, reminding me that things can change drastically when you start setting boundaries. I haven't decided what to do with it. Maybe someday I'll find the right person to wear it, or perhaps I'll end up selling it and closing that chapter once and for all. For now, it simply stays where it is, as a silent reminder of a story I'd rather not repeat.